factoring using sum or difference of cubes is kind of a last resort for me. If I look at my first example, I'm going to make it x to the third minus 64. By last resort, I mean I've tried everything else. So here, if I think about it, first thing I try is GCF. There is none. A equals 1 and A is not 1. Those don't work because it's not a quadratic form. There's no quadratic, it's cubic. Difference of squares doesn't work because x to the third is not a perfect square. And grouping, we only used that whenever we had 4 pieces, so he's not going to work. So I'm kind of stuck. All my other methods of factoring don't work. So that's why I have this factoring by pattern here, the pattern of a to the third plus or minus b to the third, in order to factor anything that's sum or difference of cubes. Notice that there's a plus or minus right here, so I have to decide which one I'm going to use. Looking back here at my first example, x to the third minus 64, that minus sign right there is telling me that I'm going to use minus here, bottom here, and bottom there. So the form I'm using is a to the third minus b to the third is a minus b for the binomial, and a squared plus ab plus b squared for the trinomial. So the key is just to figure out what's a and what's b, and then just plug them in. So A is, if I look right here, A is the first thing that's being cubed, what's being raised to the third power in the first part. So if I look right here at my quantity x to the third, and I'm asking myself, what's being raised to the third? Well, the answer is x. So anywhere there's an A, I'm going to start in my head putting x's right there. And I'll go back through and I'll clean this all up then. But if A equals x, everywhere there's an A gets replaced by an x. The minus sign I've already dealt with. Now here at the 64, I have to think, well, what's being raised to the third power here? So I go back through and I ask myself, something, question mark, to the third power is 64. And I can find it on a calculator using a cubed root button, or I could just go through and figure out that 4 to the third is 64. So what that's saying is my b value is 4. What's being raised to the third power in the second part? The answer is 4. So I can get rid of my extra little work here and realize that b is 4. So anywhere there's a b here, I'm just going to replace it with a 4. So I'm just going to go through and write out my answer now. And the first part here, a is x, so it's going to be x to the third minus 4 to the third equals, and here's my actually factored form, x minus 4. And then I have x, but it's squared. And then I plus, well, x4 would be okay if I was playing Battleship or Bingo, but I want 4x, and 4 squared is 16. So my factored form is right here, and it can't go any further. I can't factor that trinomial using a is 1 or a is not 1. It's never going to factor. Second example, a little bit more difficult. We have 16x to the third plus 2662, 2662. First thing I try every single time is GCF. And if we look right here, there will be a GCF. I can yank out a 2. It gives me 8x to the third plus 1331, 1331. And remember, that 2 right here is just chillaxing out front. He's not doing anything the rest of my problem. He's just going to stay out front. So I look on the inside here and notice that none of my other methods work. But what I do have is a sum of cubes. My sum of cubes means that I take top sign here, top sign here, top sign here. So I'm looking at a to the third plus b to the third equals a plus b, a squared minus ab plus b squared. So I need to go through and I need to figure out what is being raised to the third power. So that 2, he's just chillaxing out front. I do nothing else with him. So remember, a is what is being raised to the third power from the first part. So if I rewrite this, I could rewrite it as 2x all to the third power. Because if we think about it, 2 to the third gives me 8, and x to the third gives me x to the third. So I have all the pieces I need right there. The plus sign stays, And 1,331, if you just try out a couple values or just go through and plug it into the calculator with the cubed root button, you're going to get 11 to the third. So again, the key is, this is my a value. This whole quantity is a. A is 2x. And my b value is 11. So anywhere there was an a, I'm just going to think 2x, 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 2x. And anywhere there was a b, I'm going to think 11, 11, 11, 11. So when I write this all out, I'm going to have, let's see, I'm just going to work on the right-hand side. I have 2x plus 11. And I have 2x, and that's all being squared. Make sure you put it in parentheses. Minus 11 times 2 would give me 22x plus 11 squared. So just to clean this up a little bit, I have 2x plus 11, and I have 4x squared minus 22x plus 121. And if I just stopped there, I would get at least some points off, or I'd have an incorrect factored form because I'm missing somebody. If I come the whole way back out here, remember, there was this GCF, and I can't forget about him. I can't forget about him. So I have to put my 2 as my GCF out front. And once I do that, I have all the pieces to my factored form, and I've factored using GCF and sum of cubes.